and you realize that that's how you can make the step. So when I actually left Starbucks to start Julep, it was partly a sense of this is like the right thing. I actually asked my husband to marry me, and I think the minute that I realized like, hey, this is what I want to do, I had a hard time waiting. So I have an impatience that is part of my personality, but I think that combined with the freedom of feeling like what's the worst that can happen and the world doesn't end. You don't start something, and a lot of you will start something, and I know 100% of you will not have things, even tomorrow be what you thought it was going to be today, right? So none of us are going to have exactly what we think that we can predict right now. The thing is do you have a good hypothesis, and are you willing to iterate? And so that's really helpful. So when I left, it was partly a sense of like, I need to do this, and I believe in it. But it was also like, it's not just that, like a blind confidence about I want to do this. It was combined with the backup sense of confidence that comes from, and if it doesn't work out, I can do other things. And being able to say that to yourself honestly is a huge step in that direction, because maybe your venture won't work out, maybe your first one won't work out, maybe your first and second ones won't work out. And lots of people have been there and their lives don't end. They do other things, or they iterate, like their businesses don't turn out the way they think they will. And I was definitely in that camp. I started a physical parlor concept, and now we're like a fast-growing e-commerce online business. It was not the plan from day one. The plan was a strong sense of I want to reinvent the beauty category and do something different for women. And that has been true from day one. So having that true north, having something be a true north. So in a highly iterative environment, the other thing is that it's really good to have a strong sense of who you are and what you want to accomplish, and be true to that, to something, because everything else will change. But you have to have something, some reason why you want to do what you want to do, and having that be the core that never changes, because everything else will change. And so I think that balance of like knowing where to get your sense of confidence from, and then having the sense of what things you're true to that you won't change is really helpful.
So tell me about the gap in skill sets that you felt you had. How did you go about putting together your team?
Yeah, when you start a company, I love the concept. You guys know the concept of minimally viable product. Mm-hmm. It's like a technology term, right? Like you just get it out there and see, like instead of trying to build the perfect thing, it's like, a Facebook phrase like run fast and break things, right? The idea is like you can take an approach where you try to make everything perfect. And I think a lot of women fall into that, maybe some men too, but I think as a woman and as a working mom, that's something that I fell into. Like everything has to be perfect. Like I need to get A's, and a lot of you are type A personalities, I'm sure, who are used to that and used to being successful. And so you can, I think that having the sense that you can like just not be perfect and iterate is really important. I don't know if I think I lost track of the question.
So you had a partner to start, and then how did you go about putting together the rest of your team?
Like begging, borrowing, stealing, talking to everybody. Like, so your job once you start a company is to talk about your company 24/7. It's really boring for whoever is at home. So that's one thing that I said to, and a great piece of home advice somebody gave me is that, you ask your family and your spouse, right now, right? Like I have 2 kids and I'm not seeing them for dinner and I'm not going to be there tomorrow. You ask them for a lot of sacrifices, and so you really can't bring home your stress and anxiety and talk about things 24/7. So when I worked at a big company, I could come home and be like, oh, this sucks and that sucks, and because I wasn't asking my family for so many sacrifices. When they're in it with you like that, I think there is a little bit of of protection that you owe them. But with everybody else, they can't do it at home, but with everybody else, 24/7, you have to talk about what you're doing, because they might know somebody who knows somebody, or that, that in any way you can talk about what you're doing, what you need, be open to asking for help. I think if you are somebody who can't ask for help, you can't do this, because you really need to be able to do that. You need to be super vulnerable and say, I don't know these things. I was minimally viable product for all of my roles before I was able to hire the team. So you have to be your CFO, you have to be your CMO, you have to be CEO, you have to be parlor manager, floor sweeper, like developer. It was like I bought, Google advertising for dummies, literally. I have lots of For Dummies books, because it's minimally viable product. And am I going to go up against like the best, ad search marketer and be able to beat them at that? No. Like, I sucked at all of those roles, and so you have to also get used to sucking. And being like, okay, like I suck as a CFO. Like, I am not good at it. I'm not dispositionally set up for it. I don't have a CPA. Like, there's lots of things, but it doesn't matter. Like, you have to do that role, and you have to be okay at it and know that we all start off there, and then nobody starts off a company with all of the things in place. And like that's, I can totally speak to that for Julep. Like at the beginning, like the technology investors were like, well, why should we invest in you? You're not a developer, and you've never run a dev team before, and you've never released like online product before. So, and all of that was true. But we started off from like a sense of like brand and marketing. There's lots of technology organizations that don't have those pieces in place. Like nobody starts off with everything strong. You have one thing maybe that you're good at, and you have to have confidence in that. Like, this is what I bring to the table, and everything else you have to say like, I suck at all of these things, but I will do them anyway, because I don't have everybody. You won't have a full team on day one, and you just have to say, okay, which things do I suck at that are the most hurtful or the biggest areas of risk for my company right now, and then you try to fill that gap. And then you ask that question again. Now what am I doing, and do I suck at that, that is the biggest risk to my company, and how do I address that gap? And so I think if you have that sense of sort of nothing is forever, everything is changeable, and you have to hold the bag until you get the funding, get the customers, get somebody to believe in you enough to come on board that with no money or whatever it is that you need to do to make it happen. But one of our investors is Leslie Blodgett, who started a company called Bare Essentials that she sold to Shiseido for $2 billion. Yeah. And she said, she watched me, I am on air at QVC some of the time, and she watched me do an on air, and she was like, Jane, you don't, like on that one, you didn't go in there like your life depended on it. And I was like, oh, that's such good advice. Like, you have to do everything like your life depends on it. And then you have to remember that it doesn't. Right? It's like that tension.
That balance.
Because if you do, like, forget that and start believing, you have to act that way, but you can't believe that 100%, because then you will be like on your bathroom floor in a fetal position like all the time, and then you won't be growing your company. But I think recognizing that you're minimally viable product, and your job is to be minimally viable product, and then iterate yourself, and then like it's okay that you suck at this because you find somebody better. That whole idea of like find somebody smarter than you also is something that people say, but it's helpful to sort of, I think it was helpful to me to be like, oh, it's okay to be minimally viable product. It doesn't mean that I'm not good at my job. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't have started this company. It means that I start this company differently than anybody else who would have started this company would have, because you have the skills that are inherent to you. And so you have to know what you bring to the table, and you have to know where, and be okay with the fact that like, oh, that's okay. Like, right. I will be the CFO, even though I have no idea what any of that means. I'll go buy CFO for Dummies, and I'll be the dummy CFO until I can get the best CFO that I can convince to come join me.